Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to look at a variety of different ways that the pentagram itself is used in our rituals. We have talked extensively about the use of pentagrams, and you've been working specifically with the banishing pentagram of earth. And so now as we start to look at more complicated rituals like the greater ritual of the pentagram and even the temple consecration, there are different pentagrams. And so there's confusion that we want to clarify for you today. And so that's why we put together this presentation, to have visuals so that you can print those, you can print these handouts out. They are all posted if you would find that beneficial, or you can write them down in your journal where you have the rituals written down that you are practicing from. You have your journal, you're practicing your rituals from your journal. And this will help you get familiarity. So eventually this will just become second nature to you because we have gone over it so many times. And so I'm gonna really hand this over to Frater, and he's gonna explain most of what we're going to go over today. So can you please start?
So this is an example of the human being. It's always a guy drawing, at least medieval drawing, right? And human being inside the pentagram. So if you can imagine the pentagram in front of you, this is the direction that it would look. But if you were standing in the pentagram, if you were standing within the pentagram, spirit, of course, would be over your head, water would be on your left, air would be on your right, earth would be your right foot, fire would be your left foot. And in addition, it's worth mentioning the line of spirit, which runs straight down from the top of the head down into the earth, which comes in later when we talk about the spirit invoking pentagrams, of which there are two, an active and a passive. And I put it in the alchemical symbols, which you should become familiar with, as symbols are very powerful. Just like in ancient Egypt, they had a heretic writing for every day if they wanted to make notes or write each other letters. But when they wanted to write something magical of great importance, they used symbols or hieroglyphics. So these are the alchemical symbols for the elements and the appropriate colors that we will use to visualize the four elements. And spirit would usually be in white, but that wouldn't show. So I put it up there in black just as an illustration.
Okay. So if I'm doing this, then earth is at my right foot and fire is at my left foot.
Yes, if you're visualizing yourself within the pentagram.
If I'm visualizing myself within the pentagram, versus if I'm drawing the pentagram, then earth would be at in the area of space that corresponds in front of me to my left foot.
Yes.
Okay. So it flips when you do it inside.
Right. When we imagine ourselves in these diagrams, it does flip. So when we imagine ourselves in the pentagram or in the tree of life, we have to mentally rotate things in order to properly fit ourselves into the diagram if we want to view it as a chakra system, which is one way to use it.
Okay. But in most of the rituals that we are doing and the rituals that we'll be talking about today, you're visualizing it in front of you.
Yes.
But it's important to recognize it has a correspondence with the body.
Yes, it does.
Okay, and that line of spirit, I just want to point out, is just like that axis mundi that we have been really working on developing, the connection into the center of the planet with the holy guardian angel and spirit above. Okay, so that's good.
And there's a similarity with the middle pillar exercise when we bring spirit from above down into the earth to ground, and in the Qabalistic cross. We bring Eta Malkuth. That's the line of spirit. Because that's how spirit manifests. It comes from above and down and manifests in our reality. And spirit, is worth repeating, acts as both a glue and a grease. It holds the elements together, but keeps them separate enough that they can maintain their uniqueness.
And so the times that you would visualize a pentagram inside of you would be when you're doing the Qabalistic cross and when you're visualizing yourself inside of the tree of life.
Yes, and we'll get into some basic exercises later where we visualize ourselves inside the pentagram.
Okay. All right, does anybody have any questions on this? Inside versus outside, the alchemical symbols.
Ooh, water's wrong. Water's just an upside down triangle.
With no line through it.
With no line through it. My mistake.
Oops.
Just notice that. This is important. Because fire and water are sort of the original elements.
All right, well, it's good to be human.
It was cursed by MS Paint.
We got a question here. Can you repeat the position? Oh, we're going to repeat the position again and again and again. But as you look in front of you, to the bottom left is the earth. As you look in front of you, if you are looking at somebody, this is an image and a person is standing in front of you. That's where all of the positions are. When you are inside of it, then you would, like if you had a copy of that, if you print the handout and you hold it on your chest, and then at the bottom right would be earth, and at the bottom left would be fire.
Your right hand would be air.
Yeah.
Left hand would be water.
Right. If you've got it, then you're doing a lot. That is the purpose of this whole thing, is to get it, because it is really hard to get. It's really tricky. I find my mind really blips over this a lot. So, but familiarity. So, okay, so we move on. If anybody has any other questions on that, they're free to ask whenever they think of it. Alrighty.
So here's the pentagram that we're all used to working with. And it's the pentagram you probably draw the most, the banishing earth. The rule for drawing pentagrams is that you banish away from and then you invoke towards. And in general, you're going to be going clockwise. So here, we start at the element of earth down at the bottom.
Here. We also use that.
Oh, now it messed up.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we start at the bottom here with earth, and we travel up to spirit, down to fire, across to air, across to water, back down to earth, and you always want to repeat the last bar. The reason being is this locks in your intention with creating the pentagram, and it makes it certain that you've drawn a complete pentagram. Now, why we use the banishing earth so often is that earth basically contains all the other elements, even spirit. And so by using it, banishing earth, that's the big broom that cleans out everything. Banishing earth will banish all the elements, including anything in spirit. And by banishing, what we're banishing is not necessarily the entirety of the element. What we're banishing is any imperfections, any interference. It's like taking a room and banishing sound from it. It becomes quiet. Sound still exists in the room. Air is in the room. Water is in the room. Fire may be in the room. Spirit, of course, is in the room. But it's cleaned. It doesn't contain any more extraneous information. it's clean and it's ready for us to fill with whatever we wish. And when we do the banishing ritual of the pentagram, once the earthly energies of the microcosm are banished, what can flow in is the spiritual energies of the macrocosm. But this is the pentagram you should all be familiar with. And the technique, of course, is to hold your head straight, draw it, following it with your eyes. And we're not merely drawing the pentagram in the air. Whenever we draw a symbol like this in front of ourselves, it's called a device. But what we're trying to do is etch it into the astral plane, the etheric and the astral. We're drawing it made of energy. The energy that we work with, and this is the beginning of our form of magic, is that we want to start with an energy basis because we're going to try to tune the environment to a particular wavelength of spiritual energy so that whatever we want to do in that environment will be very powerful and can manifest. And so this symbol is the tool by which we can create a tuned energy environment when we're working with elements. And so the default color of energy that you can always use is blue flame, like burning alcohol, because that's the energy of Hesed. When we talk about Kabbalah, Hesed is the fourth Sephirah. It's the first Sephirah that's on our side of reality, the three-dimensional that we can actually comprehend. It corresponds to the planet of Jupiter and is filled with that ever-flowing positive energy of abundance and just all the good things of life. Hesed literally means unconditional love. Basically, it's a translation of it. And so that's the energy that we want to work with. If a color is not mentioned, you should always be thinking about the Jupiterian energy of that blue flame, because that will always work in any situation. Do you have any questions on the banishing pentagram? Okay, because I think we're all pretty familiar.
I have a
with it.
bunch of stuff to say.
Okay.
As well. So you talk about we banish earth because earth contains all of the elements. So in banishing earth, we're really kind of working on the whole of the process. And I wanted to ask you if earth was the element. I was thinking about Robert Wang's circle from the tarot and how earth corresponds to the princesses.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so when we look at the tarot, which we will be doing pretty soon, we'll be seeing that fire, air, and water are subsets of each element, with earth being the dominant. We'll look into more details with that Robert Wang circle of elements.
Right, because now you're talking about a process.
Earth relates to princesses in the tarot. That's my point.
Princesses, sometimes they're called pages.
Yeah.
But they're the final card of the suit in the court cards.
And I wanted to really highlight the purpose of the LBRP classically is what he's describing, but I want to bring in the concepts that when we're doing this, we're eliminating things from our life that we no longer need. So we can actually use this as a tool for all of our stuck spots, all of the places where we have repetitive, regurgitative thinking, where we're going over things again and again, our karma, our density. It doesn't matter what plane that's on. It doesn't matter which element that corresponds to. We can hold those things and use it to eliminate what we no longer need, to define our boundaries and create a sacred space for ourselves, which is very important. A sacred space full of light. It belongs to us, that we can now do whatever we want to do with, and also for protection. So that we are creating, through the use of this pentagram, when you put this pentagram in your environment, that you're hanging a sign for the energies around you to see that nothing happens here without your consent, that this is a conscious space.
It's a really good way to put it.
Right. And I think that what we're really doing is we're opening our energies after we've done the Kabbalistic class and we've activated our energies. We're opening them, we're expanding them, and we're saying, this is mine. And you will know that it's mine because I put this symbol right here. And I put these archangels right here that watch me. But we talked about archangels before. So yeah, you should be very familiar with this. This should be review for you. But just to get this set in your mind, and again, we have earth on the bottom left, fire on the bottom right, air on the top left, water on the top right, and spirit is always at the top. And it's an arbitrary top, right? Top, bottom really doesn't exist. It's just the reference that we use so that we can internalize it conceptually. And now we move on. Any questions from here? Awesome.
And just an important point, there are actually 12 different pentagrams that you can use, but we really only use about 7. The only banishing pentagram I've ever needed to draw is Banishing Earth, since it contains all the rest of them. And it is also unto itself a very powerful way to push any sort of negative energy, spirit, or anything that makes you uncomfortable away from you. That's the only one I've ever actually had to use. And honestly, I've never drawn a banishing fire pentagram or banishing water or banishing air. Never needed to, but they exist. So if you know the banishing earth, good. It's the only banishing ritual, banishing pentagram you probably ever need to use. Now, invoking is another story.
Sorry.
We can't invoke specific elements by using invoking earth because we'll get earth energy. We need specific pentagrams for each of the 4 elements plus spirit in order to be able to tune an environment correctly for our ritual work, for our meditations, for invocations and things. So when we do a temple consecration, we are opening up the sacred space and setting things up in order to do further work. A temple consecration can be a wonderful meditation unto itself, but it's considered preliminary in order to do more powerful, much more advanced work, or even simple things like a divination, tarot reading, or if you wanted to cast a rune, geomancy, or any of the other things that you may wish to do. So when we do the temple consecration, we go to the 4 directions and we invoke a particular element in each direction. This is called the setting of the watchtowers. We are taking our pentagram, going, setting it up. To the east is the element of air. And that we set that watchtower in place. We invoke a guardian to stand there and watch over it and empower it. And then we go to the south. We, set our pentagram in the ground, drawing it, invoking fire. Fire is in the south. To the west, we do water, and to the north, we do earth. And those are 4 points of invoking of power sources that we have then set in place on the astral, on the etheric planes, in order that we can do further work, that we can use those as attachment points for further sacred geometry. So if you look at the illustrations, we can see that we're invoking towards the particular element. So the element of fire, we start at spirit, we go down the right-sided bar to fire. Cross, over, down, up, repeat the last bar. Fire is on that side. Then we have the elements of air and water, where they have a special relationship. Since each is a container of the other, fish live in the water and they breathe air through gills. We live in the air, but there's moisture in the air. There's clouds, there's rain. So they contain, each one is a container of the other. And so they share that top bar of the pentagram. And if we think about the elements of air and water themselves, water is considered to be more feeling, imaginative, dreamy element, whereas air is the intellectual element, thinking, reasoning, planning, drawing blueprints, things like that. So it's very intellectual versus emotional. So it's very easy once you get the idea that when the pentagram's in front of you, water is on the right, air is on the left. If you're invoking water, you're going from air to water, right? Less thinky, more feeling. Repeating the last bar. Now, if we want to invoke air, we go from water. We're walking away from water towards the direction of the intellect. We probably make a relation to the hemispheres of the brain. Air and up, down, across, and lock it in. So the air and water ones are pretty easy to remember because they have that special relationship where you pass from emotions to intellect, intellect to emotions. So you can create that energetic field that you're going to be using for whatever work you're doing. And then earth is the opposite side. So for fire, we went down the right from spirit to fire. And then for earth, it was down the left from spirit to earth. So we're drawing that macrocosmic world down into manifestation of all the elements. So if you think about it, fire and spirit are very close together. As far as energetically, fire is probably the closest energy to spirit. So you can imagine spirit bursting into reality as fire to give us the inspiration and power. On the left-hand side, we're talking about the process of manifestation, macrocosmic becoming the microcosm of our physical world. The only way to learn this is to draw it a few times and then practice it. If you practice it, you drill it a little bit, and for your rituals, you draw it on the paper, and usually in grimoires. Maybe I can get one in a few minutes to illustrate. Probably should have had it here with me. The grimoires where I draw it, I'll pull up an illustration in just a second. Is to draw it and then practice it. If you drill it a little bit, it's really not that hard.
Right. If you put it into your journal where you have your ritual stuff and then you do the ritual, you'll be able to get it really quickly. That was what basically it took for me to be able to. I still am really not clear on it. And I'm too old to sit down and memorize things with my brain. I really need to learn by doing these. Okay, how do the directions match up? Okay, so the banishing pentagram of earth, I'm hoping that you can see my pointer here, but it's the last banishing pentagram on the second row. This is the one that you use. This is the device that you use when you do the LBRP. These invoking pentagrams that are on the top row, these are the pentagrams that you use when we do the Temple Consecration. So we're going from a very simple ritual with a singular device to a more complex ritual that has the 4 different invoking pentagrams. And that's why we're doing this presentation today, so that you can become more familiar with it. There is a lot of confusion around how those pentagrams, you are only using the earth one in the banishing because the earth contains all elements. And when you banish out earth, you are cleansing and creating a space. You are banishing. And when you are invoking, then after you've banished, then you draw these elemental energies in to create a space that becomes your space that you can illuminate and be within, be conscious within, and then create change. Does that clarify? Because this is exactly what we want to do with this slide right here, is clarify. Sort of. Okay, why don't we talk about this for a little bit and see if your questions don't form a bit more, and go ahead and share what you had to share right there.
Okay. This is one of the grimoires that I've created, and it's the one that I created specifically for use by everybody within our group.
That's not going, that's spirit, right? Face west. Okay.
And this one's illustrated, and you can see, I don't know how well it shows.
See, look at what he did. This is when you create a grimoire and you program this into your memory, this is how he likes to do that.
Right.
A lot of magicians like to do it that way.
And this was meant for everybody to use, so the pentagram is clearly drawn.
So if you were to come to our temple, not tomorrow, not on Wednesday when we come, but when there are people who will be coming, and if they would like to use the grimoire, it doesn't have the ritual that they'll be using in it.
That's the Temple Consecration, but that's one of many things.
Right. Now, also if you have the green book, then you can find this on page 83, and it walks you through with each of the pentagrams illustrated for you around the verbiage that you would say with each direction that you go to.
So I think some of the confusion may be the difference between invoking and banishing.
Okay.
So with our daily kata, the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, or the lesser ritual of the pentagram, lesser meaning general for daily use. That ritual is a kata. It's a practice that contains all the skills that you will need for even most advanced magic. You're drawing symbols, your mudras, you're vibrating names, you're visualizing, you're moving in a pattern throughout the temple, throughout the sacred space. And you're banishing, you're cleaning.
Going counterclockwise.
No, you're going clockwise. Clockwise around the temple.
When you're banishing, you're going counterclockwise.
When you're drawing the symbol.
Oh, you are going clockwise. Okay. When you're banishing, you're going clockwise. And when you're invoking, you're going counterclockwise?
In general.
Okay.
Specifically here, when you're doing the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, you're moving clockwise around the temple. You're building energy. You're drawing symbols. You're practicing all the skills of ritual magic, and you're cleaning the area out. So you're going from earth, away from earth. I'm saying earth, cleaning, clean. The area is now ritually cleaned. All the bumpiness, all the dirt, and all the interference. Like if you're trying to tune into a particular signal on the radio or cell phone or whatever, and you're too near another cell tower, you'll get interference. You're getting rid of all the interference. You're cleaning it out. This is my sacred space. Everything here is clean. That is the beginning practice. That's the practice you want to do before you do magical work. When you want to tune a space, When you want to empower an energy, a space around you, a sacred space, then you want to invoke. So now you're saying, okay, fire energy, come and fill this space. Fire energy, whoosh. Okay, water energy, I call you in. Water energy, flood. Sorry. All right, air energy, I call you. Whoosh. Tornado, winds. Earth energy, I'm calling you in. Rattle forth, earthquake energy, mountains erupting, volcanoes. You're calling in that energy. So banishing is cleaning. Invoking is calling that energy in, filling that space with an energetic energy.
Is all of this clear? Is this not clear to anyone? Claudio, I understand that part. Okay, good. Good. Okay.
So here you have presented 5 tools. The banishing earth, which you can banish anything, and the 4 invoking pentagrams, which you can call in specific elemental energy.
Okay. So it might be a good idea to say the next slide is going to be a third way of thinking about these. Okay, we've got it. Okay. So when we're adding another layer of complexity.
Yep, right.
I do. Okay, thanks. So this is used in what ritual? When do we start using this?
We start using the spirit pentagrams when we do the greater ritual of the pentagram. So pentagram rituals are, generally speaking, elemental in nature. The elements are where we start because they're the microcosmic world around us. They're things that we're very familiar. They're very easy to feel. Sampling the difference between air energy and earth energy is like trying 2 beers. Like, oh, I got a Guinness, I got an IPA. Yeah, I can tell the difference between those energies. Very easy. When we move to planetary, it's more like comparing fine wines. And if can you get that note of leather? It's a lot harder. So we start with the elements. When we move to the greater, since there's a lesser ritual of the pentagram, that's general, lesser meaning general, there must be a greater ritual of the pentagram, which is specific for specific elements. And there we're introduced to the spirit pentagram. Now in the first illustration, we had that red line that I drew, the line of manifestation of spirit, right? Went straight down the middle. Down the center of all the chakras. When we do Eta, Malkuth, drawing spirit energy down in manifestation, harmonizing and balancing. When we do the middle pillar, we go start here, EA, move on. And, we pull the energy down. And the illustration of the person, you can see the person standing there, that straight line going down. So at the bottom point, hopefully you can see the cursor. That point, the bottom angle between the 2 triangles of fire and
earth and fire.
Oh yeah, okay, well that came back up. That is where the Muladhara chakra would be, the seat of Kundalini. And because that's the way that spirit manifests, the spirit invoking pentagrams go across that bottom bar. So when we do the active elements, we're thinking about fire and air. Fire, of course, active, right? Fire is a very active element. Air is also a very active element. It's flowing, and tornadoes and storms and things like that could come to mind. They're things that we act on. You think, you use air and you reason, you do something with it. And fire is inspiration. It's very active. So the 2 active elements, you draw the bar between those 2. You go from fire to air. and it balances. It's activating and balancing of the two actives. Likewise, the two passive or reflective or sort of container elements, being earth and water. When we want to work with a passive element like earth or water, we start at earth, we go to water, and that both activates spirit receptive, spirit passive, and balances and harmonizes those two. So what's happening in the greater ritual of pentagram is we need more energy. We need a lot of power because we're going to open up a particular elemental world. We're going to create a field of elemental energy around us that goes with a specific single element. In the octagram where we're doing a double, we're going to say we want to do an energy of earth energy all around us, because whatever force we want to encounter, whatever we want to draw into us, has a strong earth component. Generate that earth field, and then whatever spirit, whatever entity, whatever energy that we want to encounter is going to be very, very earthly, and it's going to be able to manifest very easily in that earth field. And we're going to be attuned to earth energy, so we'll be on the same wavelength. And so everything will mesh, and we can do a spiritual work that would be earthy. So in which case we would draw a spirit pentagram first, in which case earth is one of the passives. So we would start at earth, water, air, fire, spirit, back down to earth, and then close it. We draw that pentagram first, and then over it, we would draw invoking earth. And then you fuse the two. And in our way of doing things, we use an invoking spiral. Fuse them, putting energy into it. Likewise, if we wanted to work with an active element, like say we wanted to work with fire energy, we would first draw spirit active. And then we would invoke fire. And then fuse those two together. And that generates much more power. One of the best ways that I know of to generate a lot of energy in ritual is by combining things, creating a reaction, combining the invoking spirit. It's also called the equilibrative, because it's balancing and harmonizing that energy with the element. You get a lot more power than just drawing a single pentagram alone. And this is using the greater ritual of the pentagram, which is what we're studying right now.
The one that we're going to do, we're going to walk you guys through those real soon.
And it's used in some of our more advanced rituals. I believe we use it in our version of the headless rite and some of the more advanced invocations, where a much more powerful energy is required.
Greater Goddess's material.
Right.
He uses it.
Yeah.
So can we take a break for a minute? Let me ask a couple questions.
Sure.
Okay. So you can use any combination of fusing depending on the intention.
Oh, yeah. Yes, you can. You have two active elements, fire and air, that you would want to fuse with equilibrative active. And then you have two passives, earth and water, which are sort of more container elements that sort of surround and contain energy. You want to use those with the passives. So that's the two sets that you want to, how you want to use the spirit, equilibrative, and the elemental ones. Later, there are ways to do combinations of elements, but that's another conversation.
That's the one we'll do on Friday, where we combine two elements on top of each other. By the way, these, you say these are spirit invoking pentagrams, but this one is coming from fire and going up. Shouldn't it go from spirit and go down to fire and then come up?
They started at spirit, went down to fire, then you'd be drawing an invoking fire pentagram.
Oh, you're right. So even though it's spirit, it's not starting at the spirit point.
It is not starting at the spirit point, but it's what it's doing is it's linking the two actives or the two passives, and it's passing through that spirit point on the pentagram that corresponds to the Muladhara chakra.
So the energetic of where you start the drawing and why you go in the direction that you're going is mostly to do with that strange point at the bottom of that pentagon figure,
right,
that's in the center, because that's the Muladhara. So it really, but it's not, so it, I don't understand why you would have a spirit pentagram that doesn't even initiate or become active in the spirit area of the pentagram. That's a little strange to me.
Because it's equilibrative. You're trying to invoke spirit in a balanced way. You're trying to harmonize the two actives or the two passives. So since we've already used the two outside bars of the pyramid of the pentagram, we could start it with, if you want to do invoking spirit, you could start at fire and go to spirit. That's legit. And I've often used that when I just wanted to do invoking spirit active and then spirit passive. You could start at earth, because if you think about it, if you're banishing earth and you're invoking spirit, it makes a lot of sense.
So where did this concept of invoking spirit pentagrams come from? Did it come from
Golden Dawn?
The Golden Dawn. Okay.
Yes, this is Golden Dawn.
This is Golden Dawn material. And so in the invoking spirit, where you go from that bottom right-hand corner and go from fire to spirit, who does that? Does anybody do that?
It's often used in Wiccan circles.
It's used in
and
Wiccan
I've used
circles.
it myself that way too. If I only, but this is important part of the tradition, is we're not only invoking, but we're harmonizing.
Right, and keep in mind, folks, that we're looking at this specific ritual, the greater ritual of the pentagram, because we had, an inquiry about it. We had some curiosity about it. So we're pulling in a ritual that is not necessarily a part of our corpus. And we're trying to understand it in the context of a myriad of things. I see there's a question, but before I get to that question, I just want to point out a few ideas that I had. You got your elements correct on this one. The ones with the bars are on the left, the ones without the bars are on the right. We have the Muladhara here, and then we have a spirit symbol that looks strikingly like a 1,000-petaled lotus, creating three channels, creating three nodes of their own outside of the pentagram, similar to what we might see in the Tree of Life.
Right.
So I just wanted to point that out, the overlaps. And once you get this down, then you'll be able to remember all of these pieces. Let's see what else we have. I still have some more things. They are reversed right in terms of fire. We need an animation. The animation is the guided meditation that we're going to do in a minute.
Yeah, we'll do a meditation.
So you can use any combination of fusing. We need an animation. So basically, once you understand this as these are your tools, these are your devices, these are your implements that you have in your mind. You have all of these basic elements, which is why we keep going over it again and again and again, is because the more mastery that you can have for these basic tools, the more you can create, because this is the foundation. These are the building blocks. The tarot really comes off of that, but you could use that in a different way. But these are the foundational building blocks, the 5 elements, the pentagrams, the visualizations, the colors, and then the entities that we bring in can vary. They vary depending on who the ritualistic writer was, what the lineage is, who they felt aligned to, and they can vary when you write them because we have an open body. You're supposed to write your own rituals whenever you want. So you could do a Taoist invocation where you put Taoist angels. You can really, these are the building blocks. There aren't that many. It's a lot, it's very simple language. Was there another question? They're reversed. They're reversed.
They're reversed when you're standing inside the pentagram, visualizing yourself within the pentagram, like in the original drawing, versus when you're drawing the pentagram in front of you. And you imagine you drew the pentagram in front of you, and you turned around, backed into it.
And you would use that for the Kabbalistic cross. Right now is the only ritual that you have where you would use an inverted. But for now, what you're seeing in front of you is what you should see when you do the greater ritual of pentagram. But you don't need to worry about these spirit invoking pentagrams until after you master the slide that we just reviewed, with being able to use that pentagram to intensify the dynamic, the felt sense of the energies of each of the 4 directions. And once you can do that, then you can start getting really fancy and complicated with it. Does that answer the question? Any other questions? The other thing that I wanted to point out that I thought was really interesting is that air and water, being that top bar, kind of set them up on a polar duality, which I kind of feel a little abrasive around this idea of polar dualities. And, you know, this system is very Western and it's very predicated on dualities. And so it utilizes them quite a bit. And it sets up shades of gray where you may find that you could have 2 parallel dualities, so that you could express your air, which is your intellectual aspect, and you could express your water, and those 2 didn't mean to need that because you were a very intellectual person, you were any less emotional. Those could be viewed as separate, but they are really kind of existing in direct relationship with one another. Whereas if we go back to the other pentagrams that we were looking at previously, which I'm going to go ahead and backtrack on, because if that's okay with you.
You have to wait.
Sometimes it seems to work.
Something to do with us being on Zoom. Does this sometimes.
So you can see this water-air duality really clearly. But when you're looking at fire and earth, it's coming from the top down. And so energetically, in my mind, conceptually, as I approach these ideas, there's very different sort of sense of origination, and development and kind of movement, right? Maybe you could get a sense of how that might feel a little different for you, but maybe not have it very clear. And that's okay. But it's interesting to note that that energetic dynamic is going on there. And then, of course, all 5 of these elements are really working like a Chinese puzzle that you put on your finger. When you pull them apart, when you try to pull them apart, you find that they're very, very interconnected, that one is not really coming from any other one. They're all interdependent. Even spirit is interdependent in this system. Even spirit plays an equal role of interdependency.
Yes.
And so I like that.
And remember, yeah, there's a dualism inherent here, even though there's sort of also multiplicity because you've got multiple nodes. pentagrams, microcosmic energy, this reality that is manifesting by bifurcation, dualism, to the 10,000 things. So we're focusing on the microcosm around us. When we start thinking about hexagrams, then we're getting a little bit away from this like pure dualism between like air and water.
I can't wait to do hexagrams. That'd be awesome.
Oh, there's a lot of them too.
And we're also really working with this energy. This is the dualistic notion that you see very prevalent in Buddhist thinking of attachment and avoidance.
Yeah.
This is really the core of it, where you're pushing, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to hear that, versus I want. And so when you're doing any of this activity, when you're doing any of this energy, all of it, anytime that you are drawing a pentagram, you are really purifying yourself at the core soul energetic template level. So when these things are gone, when these things are brought into authenticity, because that's what we're really striving for. That's what the purpose is to reveal the true will, the authentic self. You're bringing in those things, but those things can't come in if they're not part of your true self. I mean, I guess they could, but that would be, that would be maybe different than the way that I like to think about magic. I'm sure other people think about magic in that way. But if you want to bring something in that's really not something that you can, outside of your scope of potentiality, versus this is already ingrained in the fabric of who I am, in my potential as a human being, I'm going to invoke it and poof, it will appear. That's a really good, easy way to make magic work.
Yeah, I think you have a good point. And it really forces you to think about your reactions to what these different elements mean. Like, I've seen people have very strong reactions. Well, I don't think being emotional means you're any less intellectual. Like, well, why is that? You have an opportunity to think about these things and examine your reaction to the idea of fire energy, to the idea of water energy, air and earth energy, and to sort out your relationship to these, because they're really ideas, they're concepts. You took the universe and divided it into 4 piles. It's like, you have 4 archangels.
Heaps. Skandhas.
Yeah. What would be in those piles, and how would you feel about those piles? How do you feel about air energy? A lot of people don't even have a relationship with air energy because they're so caught up in it all the time. They spend so much of their time thinking they don't even, it's like the air we breathe, we may not be very conscious of it until it stinks of something, and then it's brought to our awareness. Same thing with the elements.
But it's considered to be foundational for doing any kind of magical work.
Pretty much any.
Okay, so then we've got the air. So we're gonna go to each direction, and we're gonna conjure. Actually, so when we do our earth ritual in a couple of weeks, and we conjure the salamanders, the gnomes.
The gnomes.
We conjure the gnomes. We invite the gnomes in. And we do this with our lovely ritual that Frater has written for us, and we do it in our grove. I'm so very excited. You'll want to bring earth foods, and unlike our fire ritual that we'll do on Wednesday.
Chocolate is appropriate to any element, by the way. If you want to bring chocolate.
Yes, chocolate contains all elements.
Yes.
Then what we'll do is we'll do the earth to all 4 of the direction. First, we'll do a temple consecration where we'll do bum, 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 all of them. And then Frater will do earth in all 4 directions. And on top of that will be a superimposed image of, let me guess, this one.
That's
this one. 50-50 chance that I
Yes.
got it wrong.
Right.
We'll do this equilibration passive because Earth is a passive element. I was thinking Earth was over here, and I
Right.
don't know what the heck I was
And you see,
thinking.
you've got the 4 Enochian spirit names on this chart too. Hekama for water, spirit of water. Hekama is spirit of water, or the Ace of Cups. Nanta is spirit of earth, or the Ace of Pentacles. And then on the other side, Exar is spirit of air, the Ace of Swords. And Vitom is spirit of fire, or the Ace of Wands. And that's that. And Agela is what we say to the north, and they're using Ehie. So we have a Hebrew letter word that we can say, and we have Enochian that we can say, depending on the style of ritual we want to perform. So I like to use the Enochian, especially when working in a pagan environment, because it doesn't have any sort of Christian static that can be brought up for people. But Hebrew is also an incredibly powerful sacred language and can be used as well. Question?
Yay. Yay. There's excitement. It is exciting.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
For chocolate.
Yes.
There's excitement for chocolate.
Yes.
Well, maybe we should have the chocolate before the ritual.
It's not a bad idea. It's certainly not.
How are we doing on time? We have one more thing. Okay, we're doing okay. We're at an 11.
Okay. Yeah, we can be done by 12.
So we have a guided visualization to do now. Or
Okay.
do we have another slide? We have another slide. Was there anything else? So we come back to this graphic representation, which should now look a lot different for you. I wonder if
Yeah, and sorry, let me remind you again,
there's
water
no
is
line in the
just
water.
a downward pointing triangle. When you do the sign of water, downward pointing triangle.
We should contain a lot more information for you this time around seeing it. Anything else that you want to say, or any final questions before we go into our visualizations? No, okie dokie.
Okay, so we're going to do Qabalistic cross, LBRP, and then the pentagram visualization.
Right, and then I'll end. So I'll hand it over to you after the LBRP.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to ground and center with the Qabalistic cross. I'm going to clear and energize with the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram. And then we're going to do a new ritual, a new exercise, where we visualize ourselves inside of the pentagram and we pass the energy around between the different points. And so we'll be using earth, and I will say it as we do it. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to
We'll
imagine.
be using earth. What does that mean?
It means
We'll be invoking earth?
we'll be invoking earth.
Okay.
We're going to do an invoking earth ritual exercise.
We're going to do the invoking ritual. We're going to do the invoking pentagram of earth. That's what we're going to do. And he's going to do a guided meditation that takes you through it.
And I'll call it out. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to imagine earth energy here, the form spirit. We're going to pass it down to our right foot, shoulder, right shoulder, left foot, back up to spirit, back down to earth. And I'll walk us through that. And then we can do a few passes. Well, maybe three. 3 passes is probably good. And you want to pay attention to the sensations in your body as you pass the energy back and forth. The body sensation is always the most important thing anyway. So, all right, ready? Any questions before we start?
Okay, go ahead and settle in to the felt sense of the body, grounding yourself in an awareness of your feet that are connected to the ground and your breath that is connecting you into space and time and this present moment. And allow your awareness to come into your being, creating a screen on the backdrop of your mind, which you can observe these visualizations forming. And if you have interruptions to your visualizations, simply take note of what those are and draw your attention back to these powerful details, grabbing any detail that works for you, but trying to fill your imaginative space with all of them loosely held connection. And so feel the spaciousness of this connection that you have to your inner world, and a feeling of connection to all of the other people that are here on our Zoom today in this moment, or who choose to watch the video at any time, that there's some sort of shared connection to an egregore that is striving for this benefit and gain and development. And then notice in your sphere the presence of your holy guardian angel. We imagine it as an orb of brilliance above our heads, as a brilliant white light that represents the potential of who we are, who we will be throughout all of our lives and all of space and all of time, that one guiding entity that we consider to be an I consciousness that experiments on the planet Earth with a personality, the little I, the little ego. But this is the big I, the big ego that is here to support us and guide us and offer us illumination. And we draw this down to the top of our head as a sphere, cementing its presence in place with the sacred word. Will you do it? And we draw that down from the crown of our head, that brilliance of light, into our heart. And we say to ourselves or out loud in private, our magical name, our highest name, or simply just our name. We make a request for this aspect of self to come into our being, to take a seat in the brilliant sphere that we have created in our heart, using our magical name. Today I use the name Condor, so I'll vibrate that for you. Condor, Condor, Condor. And then we draw that sphere down to the Muladhara, the area where the pentagon is pointing downwards at the Muladhara, or we can draw it down to the feet, whichever you prefer. And we solidify that with the sacred word. And up to the left shoulder. Moving across the heart center again to the right shoulder. We solidify these points of energy within us through the axis mundi, through the sign of the sacred cross, where we stand in the middle of space and time, authentic, radiant, our pure essence of being shining forward with the holy guardian angel guiding the process. We extend this light outward in all dimensions by creating a sphere of illuminated light around us. And to further solidify that sphere of light, we go to the east, where we visualize the color yellow. See the color yellow, perhaps as a element within all of the light that you see with your visual eyes, perhaps as an imaginary Bindu sphere of light. We feel the air. We notice the quality of our intellectual state right now, our thoughts. We visualize the angel Raphael, and we intone the sacred name. Yehovah. And then we go to the south, where we visualize the color red. Feel the element of fire. We explore our plans and our ideas and the things that we want to get done, the will of our being. What is your relationship to those things? Are they pressing? Are they forgotten? Are they focused on what's going on right now? We think about the Archangel Michael, and we intone the sacred name. Adonai. And so then we go to west, and we see the color blue, and we imagine water in front of us, the qualities of water. We feel that in our bodies. What is our emotional state today? Where are you at? How are you feeling today, in this moment? And we visualize the Archangel Gabriel, and we intone the sacred word. And then we direct our bodies, our attention, our consciousness towards the north. And we visualize the color green. And if you look closely at the green, you may find there are brown, red, and citrine colors present there as well. Or you can just work with the green. Feel that earth, feel the solidity of the earth element. Feel your body. How is your body today? What's your pain scale, 1 to 10? What's your ease scale, 1 to 10? How is the body doing in this moment? And we visualize the archangel, Uriel, and we intone the sacred word. And then come back to the sun, to east. Face that easterly direction again. We will conclude with the adoration. Holy art thou, Lord of the universe. Holy art thou, whom nature hath not formed. Holy art thou,
the vast and mighty one,
Lord of the light and of the darkness. And you can conclude with a quick Qabalistic cross for yourself. And that in and of itself is a very simple ritual that you can do whenever you'd like. Allow yourself to reside in that space for as long as you would like. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I haven't ended the recording. I just ended the screen share.
Okay. I wanted to record the exercise.
Actually, there was nothing recorded. We didn't record any of it. I never hit the record button. I never hit the record button. Go ahead and do your exercise. I completely forgot.
Okay. It says recording.
Oh, okay. Well, good. Then it is recording.
Okay, so this is a fun little basic exercise that everybody can do. It's classic. The idea, ideally, you would be laying on the ground with your arms and legs outstretched, like the Da Vinci person. It's like you're standing, like you're in the pentagram, like in the Da Vinci drawing, in the illustration that we did earlier. It's not always realistic to lay down on the floor. So we can do it seated in a chair as well. It's a imaginative visualization exercise. It's not always practical to lay on the floor. So we'll do it just seated in the chair. And we've done our preliminary exercises. We've ground and centered and created sacred space with the Qabalistic cross and the LBRP. So we should be in good shape. Comfortable, situated. Do you need a moment?
Nope.
Okay. Well, no people have to go. I'd rather get this demonstrated. So, comfortable, situated in your seated position, or lay on the floor if it's practical. Visualize above your head a green energy. Green glowing energy, maybe crystalline in nature, and feel the energy as it sort of radiates downward over your being. And it's very grounding, solid. It's a very dry energy. It's very cool, like being in a cave and touching stone, being in a forest and touching a huge granite rock on a mountainside next to a stream. Feel that energy. If you've ever been to a mountainous region or where there's huge granite boulders, put your hand on it and just feel that grounding, cool, solid earth energy. Just let it fill your being. Now, when you're ready, take that energy from the top of your head, pass it down to your right foot. Straight line. Visualize that ball of energy at your left foot. Your right foot, sorry. Pass it up to your left hand. Your right hand, left hand, pass the energy to your right hand. From your right hand, pass the energy down to your left foot. Feel it there for a moment. Then pass it back up to the top of your head. Try to be aware of the bodily sensations as the energy passes through the circuit. So you're standing in the pyramid, pentagram, doing the invoking earth form. So let's create another circuit. Green crystalline energy from the top of your head down to your right foot. Up to your left hand. Cross to your right hand. Down to your left foot. Up again to the top of your head. Balance it. Try. You may feel it, the weight of it. You may feel it lifting you. Couple breaths. So again, green crystalline earthy energy at the top of your head, down to your right foot, up to your left hand, cross to your right hand, down to your left foot, and up again to the top of your head. You want to lean a little bit like I'm doing. Perfectly acceptable. Helps if it helps you visualize. A couple deep breaths with the energy at the top of your head in spirit position. When you're ready, move the crystalline green energy down to your right foot. There for a moment. Up to your left hand. Feel that energy in the palm of your hand. Grounding earth energy. Cross to your right. You're holding a huge malachite crystal in your hand that's glowing with energy. Down to your left foot. Standing on a big boulder malachite, fluorite. Up to the top of your head again. Let's do one more circuit. A couple of deep breaths, feeling that cool, solid energy, that huge, massive boulder. We put our hands on and just feel that connection all the way to the center of the earth. Cool solidity, that stability holds us, the richness of minerals, strength in our bones. And then on the top of your head, pass it down to your right foot. There for a moment. Up to your left hand. Cross the shoulders to the right. Down again to your left foot. Up again to the top of your head. Just hold it there for a few moments. Do a few deep breaths. Come back, slowly open your eyes, Qabalistic cross to ground and center the earth energy that you pulled into your being. That's the exercise. First, you can do it with all the elements.